Before we dive into these scary stories, make sure to hit that subscribe button if you enjoy true horror content every week. When you are ready, lean back, and let's dive into this week's horror stories. I was 17 when this happened. It was early summer in 2009, school had just ended, and I had this habit of staying out way too late. I'd been hanging out at a friend's house a few blocks away. We'd stayed up playing games, eating junk food, and just wasting time like teenagers do. I didn't even realize how late it had gotten until I checked my phone. 3:04 a.m. I didn't want to call my parents for a ride and deal with the lecture, so I decided to walk. The air was still warm from the day, but that eerie nighttime quiet had set in. No cars, no people. On my way home, I passed a small playground near the elementary school. It was a place I used to hang out at when I was younger. It looked empty, just that typical setup with a jungle gym, a couple of slides, and a set of swings on a metal frame. I don't know why, but I decided to stop. Maybe it was the nostalgia, or maybe I just wanted to clear my head. Either way, I walked through the gate and sat down on one of the swings. I wasn't thinking about anything deep, just letting my legs rock slightly back and forth, zoning out. My neighborhood always felt safe, so I didn't really feel nervous. That changed when I noticed the swing next to me start to move. Just a little sway like a breeze had passed through. But there was no wind, not even a breeze. I actually stopped moving to make sure I wasn't imagining it. The swing kept going back and forth a little harder each time. I told myself it was probably just leftover momentum, or maybe the frame shifting from my own movement had started it. That made sense. But after another few seconds, it picked up. That was when I stood up. I gave it one last glance. Maybe I was just tired. Either way, I started heading toward the gate. I'd taken maybe 10 steps when the gate suddenly slammed shut. I had left it open. It wasn't one of those gates with a latch or spring that automatically closes. You had to push it. But now it had shut completely. Hard enough that it echoed across the empty street. There was no wind, nothing else around that could have pushed it. I turned around and saw that the swing was now swinging violently, almost like someone was on it, pumping their legs, leaning into it. But there was no one there. At that point, my nerves took over. I turned back and jogged to the gate, tried to open it, but it was locked. It was just one of those basic chain-link playground gates. No padlock, just a simple latch on the inside. But no matter how hard I pulled, it wouldn't budge. It was like something had jammed it. That's when I made the decision to climb the fence. It wasn't that tall, maybe 5 feet, and I figured it'd be easy enough to hop over and get the hell out of there. I got one leg over, then the other, halfway straddling the top. And that's when I felt something grab my hoodie from behind and yank. I lost my balance and fell backwards, landing hard on my back in the bark chips. I scrambled up immediately and spun around. No one. Not a soul. Just that swing, still creaking back and forth, slowing down now. I didn't even try the fence again. I just sprinted back to the gate and threw my weight into it, hitting it with my shoulder over and over. On the 5th hit, it finally gave. I don't know why I stopped running when I did, maybe 50 or 60 feet down the road. Something in me told me to look back, just to make sure. So I did. And standing just inside the playground fence was a girl. She couldn't have been older than 12. She was small, maybe 4.5 feet tall, wearing light-colored pajamas or a dress. I couldn't tell in the dark. But the weirdest thing? She was just standing there looking at me. I couldn't see her face clearly. Her hair was dark and long, hanging straight down. She didn't say anything. She just raised one hand and waved, like we knew each other. I didn't wave back. My legs kicked in before my brain did, and I ran all the way home without looking back again. When I got to my front porch, I had to sit there for a few minutes before I could get my key in the door, because my hands were shaking so bad. I didn't sleep at all that night. I still don't know what happened. I've told a few people, and they always try to explain it away. Maybe it was just a kid messing around. Maybe someone locked the gate as a prank. Maybe I panicked. Maybe. But I'll tell you what I do know. There was no one else around when I walked into that playground. And a 12-year-old girl being out at 3 a.m., standing silently in the shadows, waving without saying a word. That's not normal. That's something I'll never forget. This happened about 4 summers ago when I was still in high school. It was one of those July nights that stayed hot even past midnight. Everyone had their windows open, trying to cool off. There were 4 of us: me, Noah, Taylor, and Chris. We'd been riding our bikes around town, getting slushies from the gas station, just wasting time. Around 12:30, someone, probably Taylor, suggested sneaking into the community pool. It wasn't hard. There was a spot at the back of the fence where it didn't quite meet the ground. We'd used it plenty of times before. We all slipped through and made our way inside. Once we were in, it was quiet. The pool was dark, barely lit by a few streetlights beyond the fence. The water looked still and untouched. As we were dropping our stuff near the edge, Noah's phone buzzed. He checked the screen and said, "Hang on, I've got to take this. Be right back." Then he stepped back through the fence and walked toward the parking lot, phone to his ear. The rest of us stayed. Chris jumped in first. Taylor followed with a cannonball into the deep end. I sat on the edge, legs in the water. A few minutes passed. Then someone walked into the pool area. It was Noah. He was already in his swim trunks and white t-shirt, but he didn't have his phone. He didn't say anything, just walked to the edge, sat down, and slid into the water. Taylor tossed a pool noodle at him. "Took you long enough." Noah gave a quick smile, but still didn't speak. He swam slowly toward the deep end, then went under. At first, we thought he was holding his breath, just messing around. But 30 seconds passed, then a minute. "Noah?" I called out. Still nothing. No bubbles, no movement. I got in and swam over. Couldn't see anything. Taylor dove down and checked the bottom. "He's not here," she said, pulling herself out of the pool. Chris and I got out too. "Okay, what the hell just happened? Where is he?" Taylor cried. "I don't know. He was just there," Chris said. I was about to call 911 as we heard footsteps approaching us. We all turned toward the sound, not knowing what to expect. Noah was walking in, again, this time holding his phone in one hand, bike helmet in the other. "Hey," he said. "Sorry. Ava was losing it over something. Took forever to calm her down." We didn't say anything at first, just stared at him in shock. Then Chris said, "You were just in the pool." Noah looked confused. "What are you talking about? You walked in. You got in the water. We thought you were messing with us, but you never came back up." Noah laughed like we were trying to prank him, but then he saw we were serious. His shirt and shorts were completely dry. We decided that we'd had enough for tonight. We wanted to get out. We grabbed our stuff and left. But before we did, though, we checked around the edge of the pool for footprints with our phone lights. Wet ones. From whoever we saw get in and never come out. There weren't any, just ours. We pointed our lights down on the water to light it up as best as we could to see if someone was down there. But it was empty. We hurried out of there. This happened to me and my cousin Alex last summer during a camping trip through Oregon. We're both from California and had planned to spend a week off-grid. Hiking, camping, no phones, no screens, just nature. The whole unplugged cliché. We were doing dispersed camping, which basically means no designated campsites. Just find a legal spot on public forest land, park, and pitch your tent. And honestly, most of it was amazing. Peaceful, quiet, a total reset from real life. But on the 5th night, something happened that still messes with my head. We were in the Umpqua National Forest, way up in the hills. No signal for miles in any direction. That night, we ended up driving later than usual. Some of the spots we'd marked earlier were either too close to the road or already taken. Around 7:30 p.m., we found this dirt pull-off that led onto what looked like an old logging road. Just a narrow path cutting into the trees, barely wide enough for the car. We followed it for maybe half a mile and came across this small clearing. Flat, quiet, tucked in by thick trees. It felt isolated in a good way. We set up camp, started a fire, made dinner, cracked a couple beers. Just normal stuff. We weren't being loud or anything. Just hanging out, talking, enjoying the stillness. By around 11, the fire had burned down to glowing embers, and we decided to call it a night. It must have been around 2 a.m. when I woke up. Not from a sound. More like that strange pressure you feel when something's off. I laid there for a minute, trying to listen. The forest was completely silent. I really enjoyed it, but suddenly in the distance I could hear footsteps. Close. Maybe 30 feet from the tent. I told myself it was just an animal, maybe an elk. But no, it wasn't four-legged. The steps were too steady. It was someone walking. I whispered to Alex. He groaned and sat up. "What?" "Listen." We both went still. And sure enough, we heard it again. Footsteps, circling us. Not right up on the tent, but just far enough away that we couldn't see or hear clearly. We locked eyes. Neither of us said it, but I could see the same thought running through his head. That's not an animal. I reached for my phone. No battery. Alex checked his, also out of battery. We'd both figured we'd charge them with the car in the morning. There wasn't any signal out here anyway, but we didn't expect them to be out of battery already. We just sat there in silence, listening. After maybe a minute, the footsteps stopped. And then, nothing. 5 minutes passed. Maybe more. The silence felt heavier than before. Alex whispered, "What do we do?" I shook my head. I had no idea. I wasn't about to unzip the tent and make us visible. We didn't have a gun, just a hatchet and a can of bear spray, both zipped up in a bag by the tent door. So we just waited, wide awake, listening. I don't think either of us slept the rest of the night. When the sun finally came up, we stepped out of the tent slowly, scanning the trees. Everything looked exactly the same. No footprints we could see, but it's tough to tell in pine needles. Nothing seemed disturbed. But then we saw something. Another tent, about 50 yards deeper into the woods. We hadn't noticed it the night before. It was camouflaged, green and brown, the kind that blends perfectly into the forest, barely visible in the morning light. I swear it hadn't been there when we set up. We would have seen it, or heard someone. It was completely silent all evening. Alex and I just stared at it. There were no sounds, no movement, no sign of anyone inside. We both agreed we're not going near it. There was something about it that felt really off. We packed up faster than I've ever packed a campsite. I didn't even fold the tent, just crammed it into the car. The whole time I was glancing over my shoulder, waiting for someone to step out of those trees. But no one did. We backed down the logging trail slowly. And as we pulled away, I made the mistake of looking back. The tent was gone. I didn't say anything right away. Just kept looking on the trees, seeing if I could spot it. It was camouflaged after all, but it wasn't there anymore. Finally, Alex asked, "Do you see it?" I nodded. "It's gone." He didn't say another word until we hit pavement. I don't know what we stumbled into that night. Maybe it was just another camper. But what creeps me out is how that tent appeared out of nowhere and then vanished. We've gone camping since, but not like that. Not miles from anyone. Some places just feel wrong, even if you don't know why. That night, we camped in the wrong place. And I don't think we were alone.